Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. I am back in the saddle. My self-imposed exile from World of Tanks is over. I took a good long break of almost a month, and this was the very first game that I played on Circumflex's livestream last night back in World of Tanks, and it was an utter disaster. I only did something like 350 damage the entire game, but it was funny as all hell. That T62A that just backed off around the corner as the IS-4 appeared. Yep, he's drowned himself. My first match back in World of Tanks properly since I decided to take a break, and two enemy tier 10 tanks both drive to their doom in exactly the same spot. I highlighted this spot in a video a while back as an example of somebody killing himself rather than going down to the fire of enemy tank guns, and I'm happy to admit I was completely wrong. It's just one of those spots, like the corner of Fail on Erlenberg, that just claims so many careless tanks. So I'm back after almost a month away, and nothing has changed. The game is exactly the same as it always has been. I'm having good games, I'm having bad games, I'm having great games, I'm having terrible games, and the only thing that's really changed is I'm just not losing my temper about it all quite as much, so I definitely needed to take the break. And the night pretty much had it all. We were driving tier 9s the whole night because Circumflex was taking advantage of the special event on the EU server, double XP for every win, to grind out the XP he needed on his Lorraine to unlock his Batchat. And we had pretty much the entire range of World of Tanks experiences. We had games like the previous one where it was an utter disaster for me personally, but I did at least get to see two top tier enemy tanks throwing themselves to their doom. We had other games where the enemy team had Waffenträger E100 platoons all spamming premium ammunition at tier 9 medium tanks. Hell, I even had one game where an Object 704 with the BL-10 gun, which has 286mm of penetration with standard credit armor-piercing ammo. An Object 704 was firing APCR at my Centurion and bounced. It's World of Tanks. The one thing you can guarantee is going to happen in World of Tanks is that people are going to be firing ridiculously overpowered ammunition at tanks that do not require to have ridiculously overpowered ammunition fired at it. Pointless getting angry about it. It's a bit like me driving my Comet, or the way I used to drive my Comet anyway. So this game was, yeah, it wasn't bad. I know that the chances of that shot actually penetrating were minimal, but I had nothing else to shoot at. So I took it anyway, and T57 Heavy obliterated the E75 in the first place. Now, enemy 1390, he's making a run here, and he's either going to go for our artillery, or he's going to try to get around behind us. Not on my watch, you ain't, Sonny Jim, and this is dangerous, but I just managed to lever enough of the tank over the edge to not quite go crashing to my doom and finish him off, eliminating the threat to our rear. Object 704 over there. Do I have a shot? I do. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Jingles, what are you doing sniping at long range from up here? You know, there's all kinds of tanks threatening you on the corner of the hill that you're on. Well, yes there are. But from up here, that ridgeline opposite is in... there it is. That is why I was not attempting to fire across there, because I knew that that ridge was going to be infested with tier 10 tank destroyers. Now, of course, that the Leopard is dead, I can use him as cover. Now, yeah, it's a different matter entirely. That Object 268, by the way, he made a point at the start of the game by saying, oh look, it's Jingles. Just bear that in mind. That's going to be significant at the end of this particular replay. Now, at this point, should I have concentrated on giving more support to the E75 down below us, rather than popping back over here to try to get some more long-range sniping shots off at tanks on the other end of the map? Possibly, but that E75 just got obliterated by artillery. And if I had gone down there to join him, I wouldn't have been able to get away with this. You can argue that I should have gone down there earlier, but tier 10 tank destroyers, Anyway, I didn't. Gonna have to deal with it. So I don't want to go any further forward than this because tier 10 tank destroyers, and that Leopard, well, that shot was always going to bounce at that angle. And the M103 is coming around, and this T62A doesn't have an awful lot of health left. And I took a nasty hit there. You know what? We're just going to have to get out of here. And me and this T62A both had exactly the same idea. Geronimo! You can hear his tracks going off, but I managed to get down without doing any damage to the tank. Artillery takes another pop. We couldn't stick around on top of that hill. We know that artillery was ranged in on that general area. It was just waiting to reload. Two juicy tier 9 and 10 medium tanks with no armour. You know, we couldn't hang around. Now at least we can use some of the terrain to our advantage. And I'll tell you what, this T62A driver was a good wingman to have. Certainly doesn't happen often that you get spontaneous teamwork suddenly erupt for no apparent reason in a World of Tanks random battle, but when it does, it's usually the medium tank drivers sticking together and wolfpacking. And I can think of worse medium tanks to have watching my back than the T62A. And we did work pretty well together. My gun's got the big punch and I've got the most health. He is pretty much a one-shot for anybody who shoots at him, but his gun is very rapid-firing, high DPM, so that's why I'm the one going ahead and taking the first couple of hits. Can't afford to take any more, though. And finish him off for me. Thank you. Now, I'm down to 1 health, so a little bit lucky. T62A can't rely on me to take any more hits for him. Remember earlier on, in fact you may even have noticed it right at the start of the game, the enemy object 268 called me out right at the beginning of the game. So I know that he knows I am on the enemy team, and I know that he's hoping for a chance to be able to kill me, because it's the internet. Now, the guy's not stupid. He's playing cautiously, he's playing conservatively. He's not just going to throw his tank away, purely and simply to be able to say, "Ooh, I killed the Jingles," right? There are enough of those idiots around. He is not one of them. I, on the other hand, have absolutely nothing to lose. I only have 1 hit point left. If I can do some more damage, even if it gets me killed, it's not going to increase the repair costs that I'm going to have to pay at the end of this game by a significant factor. The object driver has lost. Right now, the best thing he can do is the most damage that his gun is capable of doing by shooting at that E75 and actually recovering the cost of the shell that he fired at him, rather than doing 1 hit point's worth of damage. Now, did he take the shot at me because I'm me, or because he just wanted to get an extra number next to his name at the end of the match? Nah, it doesn't really matter. But for God's sake, guys, if you're in this kind of situation, right, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter whether you kill 6 more enemy tanks. You're still going to lose. Make your shots count. Remember, the amount of XP and credits that you get at the end of the match is based on how much damage you've done. 1 hit point isn't even going to recover the price of the shell that you fired to kill the tank. But it was a decent result. Only 1 kill, but Confederate, 3,400 damage done, 1,100 spotting damage. And, you know, it certainly wasn't a spectacular result, but it wasn't bad at all. And I think that this is part of the reason why I had been getting so pissed off with World of Tanks. It wasn't World of Tanks, it was my constantly trying to measure my own performance based against the performance of the people that I'm platooning up with, and almost always coming up short. Because when you platoon up with people like Circumflexes, Sir Foch and Quickie Baby, you're never going to match their performance. They're just so much better than I am. Now, I'm certainly not saying that you should never try to get better. Right? You should always be trying to do better in each game than you did in your previous match. Try to learn from your mistakes, and so on and so on. But a man's got to know his limitations, and constantly trying to measure yourself by the standards set by the other people in your platoon when you're platooning up with people like Foch, Quickie Baby and Circumflexes is you're never going to look good by comparison. Well, not never. I do occasionally have those rare, great games where I do look good by comparison, but you can't expect it to happen every time you play. In fact, you have to expect to look bad by comparison every time you play, because these guys are just so much better than I am. And that was a large part of my problem. It wasn't that there was anything specifically wrong with World of Tanks. It wasn't that I was constantly getting victimised and targeted by enemy artillery and so on and so on. It does happen, but nowhere near to the degree that I feel it does. That's just confirmation bias in effect. My major problem, and the reason why I mostly got burnt out playing World of Tanks, was because I would be having what for most people would be considered a great game. I'm doing 3,000 to 4,000 damage in a match, getting a couple of kills, feeling good about myself until I got to the after battle report screen and saw that Quickie Baby or Circon had doubled my damage and gotten 7 kills. I'm constantly trying to measure myself against the standard set by the people that I'm platooning up with, and you're never going to look good in comparison, and I was letting that get to me, when instead what I should be doing is trying to measure my performance against my own performance. Trying to just get better at my own game, rather than trying to meet the standards set by the people in my platoon. And so, I'd be getting on a massive downer about the kind of performance that most people would be entirely happy about. And this was affecting my composure in the live streams. And, there were always plenty of haters in the live streams as well, who are going to look at a post-battle results screen where Quickie Baby's done 7,000 damage and I've only done 3,500 damage. They go, oh, Jingles, you're so bad. But, haters are going to hate. Hating's what they do. But then there would be other people who, quite rightfully, would be saying, Jesus, Jingles just did 3,500 damage. What the hell is he complaining about? And they're absolutely right. So was the problem that I am platooning up with people who are far better than I am? Well, I don't think so. I think the problem is that I'm platooning up with people who are far better than I am, and I have far too unrealistic expectations of what I should be able to accomplish in a match like that. Certainly Quickie Baby and Circumflexers aren't the only people that I platoon up with. I've platooned up with Rita Gamer and Merlanthus in the past, and they are both good players as well. They're better than I am. But they're not so much better than I am that it is almost impossible for me to match their performance, and I have had a lot of fun when I've been playing with those guys. Now, does this mean I shouldn't be platooning up with Quickie Baby and Circumflexers, and I should be platooning up with people who are more at my kind of skill level? Well, you could certainly argue that, but I like platooning up with Quickie Baby and Circumflexers. Circumflexers is hilarious. I love playing with him. Quickie Baby, I love Quickie Baby. I think he's a great player, he's a nice guy, and I could and should be learning a lot more than I am from playing with him. The problem isn't with them, the problem's with me and my expectations of what I can reasonably be expected to accomplish most of the time when I'm playing with them. I have to manage my own expectations a little bit more. I'd be enjoying my games a lot more, and I'd be getting a lot more out of them. And of course another reason for continuing to platoon with Quickie Baby is because if I didn't platoon with Quickie Baby, I wouldn't get to play with Ike anymore, and Ike's fucking hilarious. Ike, the King of Norway and Sweden. I mean, and Ike, again, he's better than I am, but he's not that much better than I am. I can at least see Ike and shoot at him from where I am. Quickie Baby, he's not even rendered on the bloody map. We all love Ike. Having said all that, however, I do think that I'm probably going to have to start spreading myself around a little bit more and not just platooning with Quickie Baby and Circumflexers all the time. Players like Rita Gamer, players like Merlanthus, if they'll have me, players who are, while they're still undoubtedly better World of Tanks players than I am, they're not that much better than me. I can, most of the time, at least remain competitive when playing with them, to a degree that I just can't when I'm playing with Circumflexers and Quickie Baby. And while, it's easy to say that you should not be trying to judge yourself by the performance of the standards set by the people you're platooning with. I mean, it's easy to say that, but when you're constantly trailing last in the platoon, it can get frustrating. Even if, intellectually, you know that you couldn't have done any better in the game that you played, when you see such a massive gap between your score and the other guys in the platoon, it's, it gets to you when it happens often enough. I certainly could and should have done better in this game. It took me far too long to work my way around the rear of these enemy tanks. And all I ended up doing was minimal damage and just cleaning up the kills done by everybody else on the team. This Object 704 game was another game where I could and should have really done better, but I freely and willingly gave up the opportunity to get a good score in this game just so I could kill a douchebag who richly deserved it. That T29 driver. Just pay attention to chat. Guys like that are the reason why so many people hate free-to-play multiplayer games. There he goes. Hello, by the way, to Prince Brian in chat there, saying, hello Jingles, it's good to see you back. Thank you, it's good to be back. This game was satisfying in its own way, not because I did a metric butt ton of damage, because I didn't. You'll see what I mean. Yep, Erwin Rommel there in the T29, proclaiming that the game is lost because nobody has gone to the left. Well, yeah, nobody apart from two BL-10 Doom Cannon armed tank destroyers, another tank destroyer with a 128mm gun and an IS-8 heavy tank. Apart from that, nobody's gone to the left. And his solution for this problem is to not move out of the cap circle. And then eventually go right with everybody else who's a noob for going right. It's pointed out to him that 4 good tanks have actually gone to hold the left flank, and it's not a problem. If 11 of the team have gone to the right and 4 have gone to the left, then the 4 that have gone to the left just have to play defensively, hold their positions. Leave it up to the guys who have overwhelmed the other flank to push the other flank. But no, this douchebag was Inspector General of the Panzer Corps in a previous life. He is convinced that too many tanks have moved to the right side of the map, and his solution for this problem is to start team killing the tanks that have moved to the right side of the map. So he puts 2 shots into the Cherie on our team, which immediately turns him blue and suspends his account. His tank stops moving. He's been banned from World of Tanks. So that's good. But it's not enough. Now, I know quite a bit about how the mechanics of World of Tanks works, but one thing that I am not 100% clear on is when you do get your account suspended in the middle of a game for team killing, do you then lose the tank at the end of the game? Does it count as your tank being destroyed? Do you have to pay the full price of repairs for that tank? I don't know, and so I am going to make damn well sure that when this cocksucker does eventually get back into World of Tanks, he is going to have a full repair bill for his T29. And sure, he had been suspended, he was no longer a threat to the team, but World of Tanks can be an intensely frustrating game. You've got to take your satisfaction where you can find it. And that was easily amongst the best 1650 credits I ever spent on a 152mm shell for the BL-10 gun. So then I went back to the position that I'd abandoned in order to dish out some justice to the cocksucker in the T29, and despite the fact that it was 13 versus 15, thanks to that douchebag, we won the game anyway. This was the final game of the night that I played on the live stream with Circumflexes when I got back into playing World of Tanks again, and you're going to see why this was the final game of the night. And again, this is another lesson that I really should have learned by now. It's knowing when to call it quits. This, incidentally, also perfectly illustrates why I'm never going to run my own live streams. When you run your own live stream, you've got a start time, you've got a stop time, and you have to keep playing for the duration of the time that you have advertised. And Crusader SP there, almost killing himself. We did actually think that the guy was about to go and drown himself at the start of the match, but Crusader SP, it's artillery, but the gun's mounted on the chassis of a Crusader light tank, hence the name. But the gun's mounted backwards, and those things are really tricky to drive. They will do 40 kilometers an hour driving backwards, and only about 20 driving forwards, so if you want to get anywhere fast in one of those things, you have to drive it backwards, and it's a lot trickier than it sounds, and that guy almost paid the price. This game started off really well. You do find this when you're with the T30 with the 155mm gun. Now look at that, bang. Very, very good damage roll. And generally speaking, when I'm driving the T30, the first couple of shots tend to dictate how the match is going to go. If you get a decent damage roll on your first shot, the gun is probably going to behave itself. It doesn't always. It's even worse than the BL-10 when it comes to trolling the guy actually pulling the trigger. I've had some fantastic games in this tank. There's a match I played on the South Coast map. It was platooned up with circumflexes, where we got brothers in arms, crucial contribution, 12 kills between the platoon, and I did over 8,000 damage driving this tank. If only all of my T30 games were like that. In fact, if only all of my T30 games were half as good as that, but this gun is infamous for just not behaving itself. I do like the T30 despite that. But anyway, the advantage of not running your own live stream is that it's entirely up to you when you decide to call it quits. Something that I have struggled with in the past on Quickie Baby and Circumflex's live streams, and it's as if I feel that I have a responsibility to keep playing for the duration of the live stream. And you could argue that I do, but I'm only a guest on the live stream. If I stop playing, the live stream will carry on. And many, many times in the past I have carried on playing out of some sort of sense of obligation to the live stream viewers when I quite clearly should have stopped. There comes a point when you're playing any game, doesn't matter whether it's World of Tanks, War Thunder, whatever, when you've just been doing it too long without a break. Your concentration starts to slip. You stop paying attention to the minimap. You start rushing and fumbling shots. You start putting yourself into positions that you really shouldn't be putting yourself into, and you just start playing badly. It's because you've been doing it too long. You need to take a break. I'm not the only person that suffers from this. And one of my major problems in the past was that I was just unable to recognise when that moment of no return had arrived, and I'd force myself to keep playing past it, and of course play badly, and then start complaining about it. And it is no fun whatsoever for a live stream audience to watch me playing badly and be forced to listen to me whine, bitch and complain about it. And this, in this game, is the point where I finally recognise that I really need to stop playing. Light Tank has managed to get around behind me. At the time this actually happened, I still hadn't realised this was an enemy tank. I thought I was being blocked by a friendly. That's how far my concentration had lapsed. It's only now that I realise, oh crap, that's an enemy tank. And I finally start to get my shit together. Getting shot by that Centurion over there. Circumflexes comes rushing in to assist me. I'm now taking cover behind the wreck of the light tank. That Centurion over there, I mean, he's tunnel visioning on me as well. He's allowed this Object 430 to get around him and just take him apart, but he's not playing for a live stream audience. I am. And I've recognised at this point that, yeah, it's been over 2 hours. Concentration's starting to go. Should never have let myself get into that kind of situation. Start paying attention for the rest of the game. Call an end to it once this match is over. And, you know, we've got this now, but it's just a question of doing as much damage as I possibly can to end on a high note, instead of, as has happened so many times in the past, ending the live stream when I am tired, pissed off, and I've just had nothing but a lousy streak of games for the previous hour when I clearly should have stopped playing long before that moment arrived. So, World of Tanks, back in the saddle, having fun playing World of Tanks again, and coming to terms with the fact that I'm never going to be as good as some of the people I platoon up with. Got to stop trying to judge my own performance by the standards set by the guys I platoon with. Got to know when to call it quits, rather than carry on playing when I'm clearly not enjoying it and just being a massive downer for the guys on the live stream audience. I've had my break from the game. I've enjoyed my break from the game, and I hope I've learned some lessons from it that are going to make it slightly more entertaining for the guys who turn up to various different live streams to watch me play. As always, folks, take care on that battlefield, and I'll catch you next time.